The cargo vessel Meridian drifted through the checkpoint like it didn't matter, like it was invisible, like it belonged. Hundreds of ships passed through Zenari space every day, rusted freighters, diplomatic carriers, mining haulers loaded with ore from the outer colonies. The Meridian was just another one of them. Old, worn, forgettable, exactly how it was supposed to be. Inside the bridge, Commander Elena Vasquez sat quietly in the captain's chair, her fingers gliding across the controls with effortless precision. Her expression was calm, bored, even. To anyone watching, she was just another human, another small player in a galaxy that had already decided humanity's place. Limited, contained, controlled. The Zenari inspection drone circled her ship, its crystalline surface reflecting starlight in fractured patterns. Invisible beams scanned every inch of the Meridian, probing for contraband, unauthorized tech, or anything that didn't belong. Elena didn't react. Her breathing stayed steady. Her pulse didn't change. She had done this 100 times before, and every single time, the same thought echoed in her mind. Let them look. Let them believe. Because for 300 years, humanity had learned one thing better than any other species in the galaxy: how to pretend. The drone completed its scan. A pause. A moment of silence. Then, cargo vessel Meridian, you are cleared for departure. Elena allowed herself the smallest smile. Not relief, not gratitude. Something colder. Something far more dangerous. Understood, she replied, her voice carrying just enough fatigue to sound real. The channel closed. The stars stretched ahead, and as a Meridian aligned with the jump gate, Elena leaned back slightly, her eyes flickering with something no scanner in the galaxy could ever detect. Confidence. Because the Zenari hadn't missed something. They had missed everything. The jump gate activated with a silent flash, bending space into a corridor of impossible geometry. The Meridian slipped through, and just like that, it was gone. To the Galactic Council, humanity was a solved problem. 3 centuries ago, when humans first reached beyond their home system, they had been full of ambition, curious, restless, dangerous in the way all young species were. So the Council did what it had always done. It regulated them. Human expansion was restricted to a handful of approved colonies. Their technology was monitored. Their fleets were limited. Every jump gate, every pathway between stars was owned and controlled by the Council. Humanity wasn't conquered. That would have been too obvious, too messy. Instead, they were managed, allowed to exist, but never allowed to grow. 12 colonies. That was all humanity was permitted. 12 small lights scattered across a galaxy that held billions of stars, and each one existed under the quiet, constant watch of older, stronger species. To the Council, humans were predictable, emotional, short-lived, a species that burned bright, but not for long. They believed time would solve the problem, that humanity would eventually accept its place, that it would stop reaching, stop resisting, stop dreaming. And for a while, it looked like they were right. Human ships followed regulations. Human governments complied. Human fleets stayed within their limits. There were no rebellions, no major conflicts, no signs of resistance, just quiet obedience, just survival. Even the last human uprising, 50 years ago, had ended exactly how the Council expected. Crushed, decisively, efficiently. The message had been clear. Know your place. And humanity had listened. Or at least, that's what everyone believed. Far beyond the monitored trade routes. Far beyond the reach of Council patrols. There were regions of space marked as uninhabitable. Dead systems. Collapsed stars. Radiation fields so intense that no known species could survive there. The Council didn't watch those regions. There was no reason to. Nothing could live there. Nothing could be built there. Nothing could hide there. And that assumption, that quiet, unquestioned certainty, would become the greatest mistake in galactic history. Back on the Meridian, Elena reached beneath the control panel. Her hand paused for just a second. Then she pressed her palm against a surface that didn't officially exist. A hidden interface flickered to life. No lights, no sound, no detectable signal. Just a single line of encrypted data. Waiting. Elena's expression didn't change. But her voice, when she spoke, was different now. Sharper, colder, real. "Relay ready," she said quietly. For a fraction of a second, nothing happened. Then, the ship responded, not through its visible systems, but through something buried far deeper. Something the Council had never seen, never detected, never even imagined. A signal pulsed outward, not through normal space, not through any known communication network, but through something instantaneous, something impossible, something forbidden, 700 light-years away, in a region of space that officially did not exist. Something answered, 700 light-years away. There was no star chart that showed the Tartarus cluster, no navigation system that could plot a course to it, no official record that it even existed. To the Galactic Council, this region of space was nothing more than a dead zone, an empty stretch of radiation storms, gravitational fractures, and unstable stellar remnants. Uninhabitable, useless, forgotten, and that was exactly why it was perfect. The signal from the Meridian didn't travel through space. It didn't pass through satellites or relay stations. It simply arrived, deep within the hollowed interior of a massive asteroid. Systems that had been dormant for hours flickered to life. Lights ignited across a vast command center carved from stone and reinforced with layers of alloy the Council had never seen. Screens awakened, data streamed, and for the first time in hours, silence broke, signal received. Lieutenant Marcus Chen leaned forward, his eyes scanning the incoming data with growing intensity. Lines of encrypted information unfolded across his display. Fleet positions, patrol routes, scan frequencies, Zenari military movement, real-time, accurate, dangerous. His heartbeat quickened. Source confirmed, he said, his voice tightening. It's how. Around him, dozens of operators straightened at their stations. The room shifted. From idle to alert. Patch it through, Marcus continued. All channels. The data spread instantly across the network. Not a network the Council knew. Not one they could detect. This was something else entirely. A system built outside their rules. Outside their reach. At the center of the command deck, a figure stepped forward. Admiral James Okonkwo didn't rush. He didn't need to. The room adjusted to him. Tall, scarred, unshaken. He had lived through humanity's last open war with the Council. He had watched fleets burn, worlds surrender, hope collapse, and he had learned something from it. Not how to fight harder, but how to wait. How bad is it? He asked. Marcus didn't hesitate. Multiple fleet movements, he replied. Confirmed. The crushed Dominion is mobilizing. A pause. Then, destination. Marcus swallowed. New Sievo. The name landed heavy. No one spoke for a moment. New Sievo wasn't just another colony. It was one of the 12. 30 million people. Families. Cities. Lives that existed under the illusion of safety. How long? Okonkwo asked quietly. Marcus pulled up the projections. His jaw tightened. 72 hours. The room changed again. Not panic, not fear. Something sharper, more focused. Because everyone in that room understood exactly what that meant. They didn't have time. Okonkwo turned slowly toward the far wall of the command center. At first glance, it looked like solid rock. Unremarkable. Silent. But then, the surface shifted. A section of the asteroid peeled open, revealing a viewport that faced the darkness beyond. And in that darkness, something waited. 3 shapes. Massive. Still. Wrong. They didn't reflect light. They didn't glow. They didn't behave like anything that should exist in space. They absorbed it, like holes carved into reality itself. Marcus had seen them before. Everyone here had. But every time, it felt the same. Like standing on the edge of something too big to understand. 200 years, Marcus whispered, almost to himself. Okonkwo didn't look away from the shapes. For 200 years, the Admiral said, his voice steady, humanity has been preparing for a war the galaxy thinks already ended. The crushed Dominion fleet moved without hesitation. They didn't need permission. They didn't need approval, because they already knew how this would play out. They had seen it before. A smaller species, a weak claim, a quiet takeover. The Galactic Council would argue, debate, delay, and by the time they reached a decision, it would already be over. 3 battle groups cut through space toward New Sievo. Warships grown from living matter. Hull plating layered like insect chitin. Weapons designed not just to destroy, but to harvest, to claim, to convert. To the Dominion, planets weren't homes. They were resources. And New Sievo was underdeveloped, underutilized, wasted on humans. On the colony itself, life continued as normal. Children walked to school beneath artificial skies. Cargo ships moved between orbital docks. Markets buzzed with quiet, everyday noise. They had no idea, no warning, no understanding of what was coming for them. Back in the Tartarus cluster, the command center pulsed with activity. Data updated in real time. Enemy trajectories refined. Probabilities calculated. And every outcome led to the same conclusion. If nothing changed, New Sievo would fall. Okonkwo stood at the center of the room, watching it all unfold. Options, he said. Marcus hesitated. Not because he didn't have answers, but because none of them were good. We can deploy the conventional fleet, he said. The one the Council knows about. Okonkwo didn't respond. Best case, Marcus continued, we delay them. Buy time. And worst case, the Admiral asked. Marcus exhaled slowly. We lose everything we send. Another officer stepped in. So, if we reveal them now. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Everyone already knew what he meant. The Titans. Okonkwo finally turned away from the viewport. His eyes moved across the room. Every face, every person here had been part of the secret, had lived with it, built it, protected it, for decades. We reveal them now, he said slowly, and the entire council turns on us. Silence, heavy, unavoidable. But if we don't, Marcus added quietly, 30 million people die. Far away, in a hidden bunker beneath the ruins of old Geneva, the true leaders of humanity were having the same conversation. President Sarah Chen stood at the head of the table, her expression unreadable as the data streamed across the holographic display. Fleet movements, time projections, casualty estimates, all pointing toward the same reality. War, not a border conflict, not a small engagement, a war that would decide whether humanity remained controlled or became something else entirely. We can't abandon them, she said. General Yates leaned forward. We won't, he replied, but we can't show everything either. Sarah's eyes shifted toward the projection, toward the one piece of data the Council had never seen, never suspected. How long? She asked. A scientist stepped forward. If we deploy them now, 6 months to reach New Sievo. Too long. Far too long. Silence filled the room. Then, a decision. Cold. Calculated. Necessary. We send the fleet, Sarah said. Yates nodded. They won't win. They don't have to, she replied. Back in the Tartarus cluster, Okonkwo received the transmission. He listened, didn't interrupt, didn't question. When it ended, he closed his eyes for just a second, then opened them again. Sharp, focused, resolved. Deploy the fleet, he ordered. Marcus looked at him. And the Titans. Okonkwo turned back toward the darkness beyond the asteroid, toward the 3 impossible shapes waiting in silence. Prepare them, he said quietly, just in case. Far away, on the meridian, Elena received her next set of orders. This time, there was no pretending. The Tartarus cluster did not sleep. It never had. For 2 centuries, it had lived in silence, hidden from every scan, every probe, every curiosity the galaxy had ever sent into the dark. But now, it was waking up. Deep within the asteroid command station, entire sections that had remained dormant for years began to activate. Massive power conduits lit up like veins carrying energy through the structure. Lock systems opened. Restricted protocols dissolved. And something far beyond the asteroid itself responded. Outside, the 3 shapes moved. Not fast, not aggressively, but with a weight that made the stars themselves seem distant. The first, Prometheus. The second, Defiance. The third, Reckoning. Names that had never been spoken outside this cluster. Names that had never been recorded in any database. Because officially, they did not exist. Marcus stood frozen at the viewport as the nearest Titan shifted slightly in space. For a moment, the stars behind it bent. Not disappeared, not dimmed, bent, like space itself was struggling to remain intact around it. Gravity distortion increasing, one of the operators reported. Power output rising across all three constructs. Constructs, that was the word the engineers used. Not ships, not stations, because nothing that large should be able to move. Nothing that massive should be able to fight. Status, Okonkwo said. Primary reactors online, another voice answered. Secondary systems waking. Weapons still offline. Good, the Admiral replied. He didn't want them fully active. Not yet, because once they were, there would be no going back. For 200 years, humanity had built in silence. Generation ships had vanished from Earth without explanation. Resources had been redirected through layers of false records. Entire populations had disappeared from official registries. To the Council, it looked like inefficiency, loss, mismanagement. But in reality, it was construction, a civilization growing in the dark, a civilization with one purpose: never be controlled again. Marcus finally found his voice. "Sir, if we use them." Okonkwo cut him off. "We don't use them," he said. The room fell quiet. "We reveal them." That word carried weight, because it wasn't just about weapons. It was about truth, about ending the lie humanity had lived under for 3 centuries. Okonkwo stepped closer to the viewport, his reflection barely visible against the darkness. "For 200 years, he said, almost to himself, "we've hidden what we are becoming." His eyes shifted to the distant stars. To survive. A pause. Then, to prepare. Behind him, the command center continued to hum with controlled urgency. No panic, no chaos, because everyone here knew something the rest of the galaxy didn't. This wasn't desperation. This wasn't a last stand. This was timing. And somewhere far away, 30 million lives were ticking down toward zero. The meridian drifted in silence. No engines, no signals, nothing that could be detected. It floated near the outer edge of a Zenari surveillance station, close enough to be dangerous, far enough to remain unnoticed. For now, Elena Vasquez checked her suit one final time. The stealth field shimmered faintly across its surface, bending light just enough to make her invisible to standard sensors. But it wouldn't last forever. Nothing ever did. Her orders were simple, clear, unavoidable. Infiltrate the station, access their network, plant the virus. Get out. She knew the real mission. Delay detection. Blind the enemy. Buy time. She didn't know if she would survive it. The airlock opened without a sound. Cold space swallowed her instantly. For a brief moment, there was nothing, no sound, no movement, no feeling except the quiet pressure of the void. Then she moved. Magnetic grips activated along her boots as she crossed the surface of the station. Each step measured, precise, calculated. Below her, the structure pulsed faintly with energy, Zenari technology, crystalline in nature, processing data in ways human systems could barely replicate. But Elena didn't need to understand it. She only needed to break it. She reached the access point, paused, listened. Nothing. Her tools extended automatically, interfacing with the alien surface. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the system responded. Data flooded her visor. Unreadable at first. Then patterns. Then structure. Then opportunity. "Come on," she whispered. Her fingers moved quickly, guiding the intrusion algorithm deeper into the system. Bypassing security layers. Adapting. Learning. Cutting. Minutes passed. Or maybe hours. Time lost meaning. Finally, a breach. "I'm in." She deployed the virus, a silent piece of code designed for one purpose. When activated, it would shut down their early warning systems, blind them at the exact moment humanity needed it most. She exhaled slowly. Almost done. Then, the alarm sounded. Not loud, not dramatic, just a sharp pulse through the station systems. Enough. Her blood ran cold. "Impossible," she whispered. She had been careful. Perfect. But perfection didn't matter. Something, some small detail, had gone wrong. Intruder detected. The words echoed through a translator. Elena didn't hesitate. She triggered the virus early. Not ideal, not planned, but necessary. Transmission sent. Her system confirmed. Data burst outward in a tight beam. Back to the Meridian. Back to Tartarus. Mission complete. Now, survival. She ran. The station came alive behind her. Energy signatures flared. Security forces mobilized. The silence was gone. She reached the outer hull. Her shuttle was there. Hidden. Waiting. Almost there. Then, light. A beam of crystalline energy struck her shoulder. Pain exploded through her body. Her suit flickered. Failed. She fell. The stars above her blurred as her vision struggled to stay focused. Her breath came sharp, uneven. Footsteps approached. Not human. Not familiar. The Zenari captain stood over her. Its body refracted light into impossible colors, its form both beautiful and terrifying. A human, it said. The translator softened the sound, but the meaning was clear. Interesting. Elena forced herself to stay conscious, to stay silent. You thought you could hide from us, the alien continued. You thought we wouldn't see. She said nothing, because she didn't need to. The Zenari didn't understand. Not yet. As darkness began to close in around her vision, as pain dragged her toward unconsciousness, one thought remained. Sharp, unbreakable. They had too late, because the moment she had sent that signal, everything had already changed. Far away, in the Tartarus cluster, Admiral Okonkwo received the transmission. And this time, he didn't hesitate. Activate them. The order echoed through the command center, across the asteroid, across the cluster, and in the darkness beyond. The Titans answered. New Sievo saw them before it understood them. 300 warships tore open space at the edge of the system, dropping out of faster-than-light travel like a storm made of metal and hunger. They didn't arrive quietly. They didn't need to. The crushed Dominion had never needed subtlety. On the surface, people stopped, mid-step, mid-sentence, mid-life, and looked up, the sky filled with shadows. Governor Robert Martinez stood in the Planetary Command Center, staring at the tactical display as it populated faster than his mind could process. 300 confirmed, his officer said, voice tight, multiple carrier-class signatures, boarding craft detected. Martinez didn't respond immediately. He didn't need to. He already understood. This wasn't a raid. This wasn't a warning. This was a claim. Incoming transmission, another officer said. Put it through. The face that appeared on the screen wasn't a face. It was something else. Laid eyes, chitinous structure, mandibles that moved as it spoke. Human colony of New Sievo. The translator rendered cold and precise. This system is now under the authority of the crushed Dominion. Martinez's jaw tightened. This is a recognized human colony, he said. You have no claim. Correction. The creature interrupted. This system has been reclassified as underdeveloped and unclaimed. A pause. Then, you have 12 hours to surrender. 12 hours. For 30 million lives. The transmission cut. Silence followed. Heavy. Crushing. So, someone whispered, what do we do? Martinez straightened slowly. There was fear in his chest. Of course there was. But there was something else too. Something harder. We follow evacuation protocol, he said. Above the planet, chaos began. Civilian ships launched in waves. Overloaded, unprepared, desperate. The crushed fleet didn't stop them, didn't interfere, didn't need to, because to them, there was nowhere humans could go. Hours later, another fleet arrived. Human. Admiral Catherine Chen stood on the bridge of the battleship Indomitable, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. 147 ships. Against 300. Odds. Her second-in-command asked quietly. Chen didn't look at him. Not relevant. A pause. Then, because we're not here to win. Her fleet spread into formation. Tight. Disciplined. Familiar. The crushed commander broadcast again. Human fleet. Withdraw. Chen's response was immediate. Simple. Cold. Come and take it. The battle began. The first wave hit hard. Plasma fire, missile barrages, swarming attack craft. Human ships took the impact, shields flaring, hull plating cracking. But they didn't break. They adapted. Kamikaze drones slammed into enemy vessels. Missiles curved mid-flight, adjusting trajectories in real time. Targeting shifted, not to shields, but to life support, to engines, to anything that would hurt more. This isn't standard doctrine, one officer said. Chen didn't respond. Because it wasn't. This wasn't how civilized species fought. This was how humans fought. Like survival was the only rule that mattered. Within the first hour, 90 enemy ships were gone. But so were 20 human vessels. The void filled with debris, fire, silence between explosions. "They are pulling back," someone shouted. And they were. The crushed fleet, shocked by the resistance, began to retreat. Not routed, not defeated, but reconsidering. Chen exhaled slowly. Status: 4 to 7 ships lost or crippled. A terrible cost, but they had held. Not won, held. And that was enough. Because far away, something was already moving. The Council Armada arrived in force. 700 warships. The largest fleet assembled in 10,000 years. They didn't come for negotiation. They didn't come for balance. They came for extinction. At the edge of the Sol system, space tore open. Ships pawed through. Endless. Overwhelming. On Earth, every sensor lit up at once. Contact confirmed. An officer said, voice shaking. 700, no, Mars signatures resolving. President Sarah Chen stood still, watching, calculating, accepting. How long? She asked. Less than 2 hours until engagement range. 2 hours. That was all humanity had left. In orbit, what remained of the human fleet moved into position. Damaged, outnumbered, unbreakable. And then, the sensors broke. At first, it looked like an error. A glitch. Impossible readings at the edge of the system. Gravity spike detected, someone said. Source, another asked. No answer, because the system didn't understand what it was seeing. Space, bent. Not warped, not distorted. Bent. Something was pushing through reality itself. Visual feed incoming. The screen changed, and everything stopped. 3 shapes emerged from the darkness beyond Neptune. Massive, silent, unreal, each one the size of a small moon. Their surfaces moved, not mechanically, but organically, like structures built with purpose beyond simple design. Weapons lined their exteriors. Thousands of them, dormant, waiting. Identify those objects, a council officer demanded. No one answered, because no one could. Then, a transmission. It cut across every frequency, every language, every system. Admiral Okonkwo appeared on every screen. Council fleet, he said. Calm, controlled, certain. You came to our home to destroy us. Behind him, the Titans loomed. For 300 years, you told us what we could be. A pause. You were wrong. The words landed like a weapon. These are the Titans, Okonkwo continued. Humanity's answer to your control. The camera shifted slightly, showing them in full. Each one carries a power to end your fleets. Another pause, longer this time, and we built them where you never thought to look. Silence spread across the battlefield. Then, the Titans moved, and the galaxy understood its mistake. For a single, fragile moment, no one moved. 700 warships, 3 Titans, the balance of power, something the Galactic Council had controlled for millennia, hung in silence. Then, someone fired. A streak of energy tore across space from the Council line, slamming into the nearest Titan. The impact should have been catastrophic, enough to shatter continents, enough to crack a planet's crust. It did nothing. Impact registered, a Council officer said, confusion creeping into their voice. No structural damage. On Prometheus, Admiral Okonkwo didn't even blink. Return fire. The Titan answered. Thousands of weapon ports opened across its surface in perfect synchronization. No delay, no hesitation. And then, space itself seemed to break. Kinetic rounds, chunks of dense alloy the size of buildings, launched at relativistic speeds. They didn't streak. They didn't glow. They simply appeared and erased whatever they touched. The first council ship vanished. Not exploded. Not damaged. Gone. Multiple losses. A voice shouted from the council flagship. Unknown weapon system. Another volley. This time, dozens of ships were hit. Hull plating meant to withstand nuclear fire folded like paper. Shields didn't shatter. They were ignored. Then came the gravity weapons. A council cruiser, 3 kilometers long, suddenly collapsed inward, its structure compressing violently as a localized singularity formed inside it. For a fraction of a second, it existed as something impossible. Then it was gone. Black hole event detected. Impossible. That technology doesn't exist. But it did, and it was human. Defiance. Engage left flank. Okonkwo ordered. The second Titan moved, faster than something that size should be able to move. Its gravity drives bending space around it, pulling nearby ships off course. Council vessels tried to reposition, tried to adapt. They couldn't, because every movement they made, the Titans had already predicted. Mass drivers fired again. Entire formations disappeared. Reckoning advanced, where energy weapons failed against crystalline Zenari hulls. It didn't use energy. It used force. Asteroids accelerated to impossible speeds, tore through ships like glass. Fragments scattered across space. Burning. Dying. This isn't a battle, a council officer whispered. They were right. This wasn't war. This was demonstration. Focus fire on one target. The Zenari admiral ordered desperately. Break their shields. 200 ships aligned, weapons charging. They fired. A storm of energy slammed into Prometheus. The void lit up. Space itself screamed under pressure. For a moment, just a moment, the Titan's shields dropped. Shields at 48%, an officer reported. On the council flagship, hope ignited. On Prometheus, Okonkwo remained calm. Rotate harmonics, he said. Activate gravity well. The Titan pulsed, and suddenly, the attacking fleet wasn't attacking anymore. It was falling. Ships were dragged forward, their engines screaming against an artificial gravity field they couldn't escape. Formations broke. Control collapsed. Now, Okonkwo said, everything fired. At point-blank range. Ships crushed, torn apart, erased, in less than 2 minutes. Over 100 council vessels were gone. Silence followed. Not complete, but close enough. Retreat, the Zenari admiral said. Not shouted, not commanded, admitted. Retreat. The remaining ships toned, scattered, desperate to escape. But even that was controlled. Reckoning shifted position, its gravity field disrupting faster than light calculations. Ships trying to jump tore themselves apart. Only a fraction made it out. Less than half of what had entered the system. Behind them, 400 wrecks drifted in silence. The largest fleet in galactic history. Broken. By 3. On Prometheus, no one cheered. Not yet, because they understood something the Council now feared. This wasn't victory. This was a message. Across the galaxy, the news spread faster than any ship could travel. The Battle of Sol. 700 warships. Defeated. By humanity. The same species the Council had controlled for 3 centuries. The same species they had called weak. Predictable. Limited. They weren't laughing anymore. They weren't debating anymore. They were afraid. In the Council chamber, chaos erupted. Voices clashed. Accusations flew. Blame shifted. How did this happen? They hid this from us. For how long? No one had answers. Only one truth. They had underestimated humanity. Again, on Earth, people emerged from shelters slowly, carefully, as if expecting the sky itself to fall. But it didn't. Instead, they saw them, the Titans, hanging in orbit like silent guardians, massive, unbreakable. For the first time in 300 years, humanity wasn't being watched. It was being feared. President Sarah Chen stood in the command center, looking at the aftermath. The debris field, the silence, the survival. We did it. Someone said behind her. She didn't answer immediately, because she understood something deeper. "We survived," she corrected. A pause. "And now, everything changes." Days later, a transmission arrived. Not a threat, not a demand, a request. The Galactic Council wanted to talk. They wanted peace, equality, recognition, everything they had denied humanity for 3 centuries, now offered freely, not out of respect, out of fear. But even as negotiations began, even as the galaxy reshaped itself around this new reality, something else moved, far beyond the edges of known space, beyond the regions even the Council avoided. Sensors detected it first as noise, then as distortion, then as something massive, ancient, moving, not toward one system, toward all of them. In the Tartarus cluster, new data streamed across the screens. Unknown structures, impossible energy signatures, trajectories that didn't match anything in recorded history. Marcus stared at the data. "Sir," he said slowly, "you need to see this." Okonkwo stepped forward, looked, paused. For the first time, his expression changed. "What is it?" someone asked. A long silence followed. Then he spoke, something that destroyed the ones who built the Titans. The room froze, because that meant there was something stronger. On Earth, Sarah Chen received the same report. She read it once, then again, and this time, there was no victory in her eyes, only understanding. "We didn't win," she said quietly. The room looked at her, confused. She looked up, toward the sky, toward the Titans. "We just survived long enough." A pause, to face something worse. Far out in the darkness between stars, something moved, ancient, silent, unstoppable. And this time, it wasn't coming to control humanity. It was coming to end everything.